Now that we've edited and tweaked our main foundation, we'll want to continue improving it, which in this case means that we're going to start adding B-roll to help tell our story. So if our interviews here are our foundation, or A-roll, telling us all about the brewery, then we'll use the footage of the brewery as our B-roll, which will not only provide us very important supplemental visuals, but it will also function to help cover up all of our jump cuts, which look like this.
The craftsmanship, we have Casey and his team who care meticulously about the beer. He's here anytime the beer needs him.
Okay, and we'll accomplish this by setting up 3-point edits using our overwrite command. All right, so I'm going to come to the beginning here, and let's zoom in a little bit, ++. And we have our first jump cut here. So sometimes B-roll is dictated by where you have your jump cuts, but not always. But right here, I do want to start off with some visuals. I'm going to play over this so we can see what he's saying.
Craftsmanship, quality, and community spirit. That underlies everything that we do.
So he's setting up the entire piece, and what I would like to do visually is something similar. I want to have some B-roll that is very topa, and this is the one I'm looking for. It's the staged moving shot. And I'm going to load this and play it for you so you can see what it looks like. As you can see, it starts off with the topa sign, which is what we want. And then it tilts up, and we have the bartender putting out the beer flight. And that's what I want. I want the shot to start here, and I want it to end here. Now notice it does contain audio. So we'll have to make the decision if we want to edit the audio in as well, and I'll show you how to do that. All right, so first of all, we're going to set this up just like any other edit by marking an in and an out point. So I'm going to mark an in point here right before we start this motion, and then I'm going to mark an out point right as soon as she puts the beer flight out and her hands get out of the way. Okay, so this is a 6-second and 1 frame shot, and I think I want it to come in right before the jump cut.
Quality and community spirit. That underlies everything.
How about right here? All right, so if I don't put an in point, it's simply going to make the edit where the playhead is, which is fine in this case. But we have to take a look at our track selectors. Right now, this is not set up correctly. I want to have the B-roll go on V2, okay? So I'm just going to move my V1, which is representative of this shot, up to V2, which is representative of this track on the timeline. And then if I want to edit my audio in as well, I want to make sure that that goes down to A2. All right, so the A1 from this shot is going to be patched to A2 on the timeline. All right, so let's go ahead and make this edit. If I wanted to drag and drop, I certainly could, but I want to stress the keyboard, so let me undo that, and I want to show you the overwrite command, which is this on-screen key on the keyboard or your period key, okay? So I've marked my shots, and this is called a 3-point edit because there are 3 points. This is an in point, an out point, and in the absence of an in or out point, we have our playhead acting as our in point, and then I simply press period. All right, so our 6-second and 1 frame shot from the source is now brought down into the timeline, and it's probably much too loud.
Quality and community spirit. That underlies everything.
So we'll want to turn that way down. I'll show you to do that really quickly right now, but in the audio chapter, we'll learn how to do this a little bit better. I'm going to just make my A2 track a little bit bigger by scrolling up on my mouse scroll wheel. You can also grab this track and drag it down. And then there's a line right here in the middle, and as soon as you see your cursor change to a double-sided arrow, you can drag this way down, and that'll be good enough for now. All right, so let's take a look.
Quality and community spirit. That underlies everything that we do.
So we'll probably actually end up not using the audio for now, but we'll keep it there for the time being. Now, what we're going to have is some music, and then we're going to have the music kind of swell over this. So while it seems long now, it's going to look good in the final piece. So let's move on. And the next shot that I want is something that shows the essence of the brewery, something positive during this sort of musical interlude. And I think I want this one right here, the cheers. Okay, so let's grab that as well. And I want to grab the moment right before they cheers. So I'll mark an in point here. And there's the cheers, and he takes a drink, and we'll see where we want the out point to be, but for now, that's okay. All right, so this is another 6-second shot, and let's bring our playhead down right after our first shot, and I can shift drag to snap that. And here, I would just press my period key. Now, just to remind you, if for some reason I don't want to edit in my audio, I just need to turn that off and then press period, and then just my video is brought in. But again, I'm going to bring it in for now, and then we can make the decision whether to use it later. Okay, so I'll turn on my audio and perform the overwrite by pressing period, and that looks good. I'm again going to just turn down the audio so that we can focus on what's being said, and let's listen to Jack right after the gap here.
The craftsmanship, we have Casey and his team who care meticulously about the beer. He's here anytime the beer needs him.
All right, so I actually don't think I'm going to cut back to Jack here. I want to go straight from Casey enjoying the beer to Casey working in the brewery. And we're talking about craftsmanship, so I want to show Casey hard at work. And so I'm going to grab a moment from this shot here, Casey working, miscellaneous equipment. And let's see, I'm doing quite a few things, definitely knows what he's doing. So this is a nice shot to show his craftsmanship. I think I'll grab a moment from right here. So I'll mark an in and an out. All right, so this is 4 seconds and 6 frames. We'll go ahead and bring that down. I'll press period. And I'm just going to lower the audio so that we can hear Jack and Casey talk. Let's listen.
Who care meticulously about the beer. He's here anytime the beer needs him.
So I always tell people that if you want to become a brewer,
So I think we need one more shot of Casey working in the brewery, something else that really shows that he knows what he's doing and that he loves what he does. And one shot I really like is this one right here, Casey checking the beer. All right, so he is getting the beer out and he's looking at it. And I actually want this shot to end right as soon as he brings this up to his eye. So I'm going to set this up a little bit differently. I'm going to mark an out in my source, but no endpoint. And instead, I'm going to mark an in and an out in the timeline where I want this to go. So let's listen again and see exactly where we want this shot to come in.
So I always tell people that if you want to become a brewer, you have to be obsessed with.
Okay, what I want to do is have Casey on screen when he says, if you want to become a brewer, all right? So I want the end of this shot to come in right as soon as he says that. So let's find that moment.
So I always tell people that if you want to
All right, so that's where I want the shot to end. And let's see where we want it to start.
Here anytime the beer needs him.
So I always tell people that.
Let's make it start as soon as he says, so I always tell people.
Anytime the beer needs him.
So I always tell people that.
Okay, so now we've made another 3-point edit, but it's a different type of setup. I have an in and an out point here in the timeline, and I have an out point in the source. So instead of counting the number of frames that I have here, it's going to count the number of frames that I have here. So this is set up for 2 seconds and 2 frames. So what it's going to do is it's going to take this out point, and then it's going to take the 2 seconds and 2 frames leading up to this out point and edit it in. All right, so I'll just press period and lower my volume so I can hear it. And let's take a listen.
Beer needs him.
So I always tell people that if you want to become a brewer, you have to.
All right, I think that works really well. I'm just going to lay in a few more shots, and I'm going to do it over Casey's next soundbite. Let's take a listen to exactly what he says, because he's going to be describing some very specific things.
Or you have to be obsessed with beer and love it. It takes a special individual to be in a brewery where it's almost 100 degrees and you got steam in your face, it's wet. It's really not a glamorous job of what people think.
So we have some shots of just that, and it's this one, Casey cleaning the tank in the medium long shot. You can see the steam rising off of that. It's very hot. And then here he is in close-up, all right? And when he's talking about steam in his face and sweaty, that would be a good part of the shot to use there. All right, so let's go ahead and find a moment in the timeline where we want this B-roll to go.
It takes a special individual to be in a brewery where it's almost 100 degrees and you got steam in your.
Okay, I'm going to set it up so that we have a shot going over to be in a brewery that's almost 100 degrees. So let's mark an in and an out in the timeline again.
It takes a special individual to be in a brewery where it's almost 100 degrees and you got.
Okay, and I think I'm going to grab the medium long shot for that because we have some nice steam here. And as soon as the camera settles, I think I'll mark my in. All right, so we have about 3 seconds and 10 frames marked in the timeline. I've got my in point. It's going to count forward. Let's go ahead and perform the overwrite. And I'll watch it.
to be in a brewery where it's almost 100 degrees and you got steam in your...
All right, it's still much too loud, but we'll fix that later. And now he talks about having steam in his face, which we know is in this shot. Okay, and again, I'm going to mark in the timeline.
Steam in your face, it's wet. It's really not a glamorous job.
So let's go ahead and grab this medium shot, maybe right here. Again, I'll mark an in point and I'll overwrite with period. And bring that down for now and take a look.
And you got steam in your face, it's wet. It's really not a glamorous job of what people think.
All right, and as you're laying the B-roll in, you can of course trim in or out as appropriate, and we'll learn a lot more trimming techniques in the next chapter. But there's a lot more B-roll to lay. I do have a sequence here called post B-roll where I've already laid it all in. All right, so you can take a look at this to inspire you or certainly make your own decisions on what you'd like to see as the B-roll helps to bring this piece alive.